Season 9, episode 28, number 376, talking about dirty candy. Don't put the put the dirty candy down. How do we even frame this so that anybody listening would understand what we're referring to? And you coined it, so I'm not taking
Yeah,
credit for it. Yeah.
I think it fell out of my mouth relative to it's this idea that I think in education in our jobs, as we sort of move through and get new portfolios and we try different things, um, there's a tension there because the more if you decide all of a sudden that you want to start developing your MLL skills and you were formerly an artist, you're teaching art. Sometimes I see colleagues that are, I don't want to say desperate, but they're really leaning on their former self and using those skills to develop the new self. So there's a pretty specific set of tools that are necessary in order to do good work in the MLL sphere. Then there's new tools being added all the time. You have to know, board procedure. There's digital tools. There's relationships. There's multicultural and geopolitical elements that you need to spend time soaking in, and that's going to take up a lot of time, most of your time, especially in the first. I always talk about this, like, first 3 to 5 years of a new position. You should be in such an intensive learning curve that sometimes it's unfortunate that when the funding runs out, you just get to a spot where you're kind of comfortable with the role. You can kind of do it with some agility, and they're like, sorry, money's all gone, or the board is shifting its priorities. But I get frustrated time and time again where I see individuals that shift into new roles and they're not optimized in the new role. They're stuck. They're still using, obviously, tools from a former role. So, if I use the MLL kind of framework, becoming that teacher, you can't just have your kids doing watercolor painting and sculpture all the time in order to sort of exhibit their language acquisition. You need to be able to use the most edge technical tools and assessments that the MLL network that you're in asks you to do. Like, you have to exist there. So the whole idea of the dirty candy that I said is that where an individual is playing a weak move and using their old training in a brand new role. And I do think that there's a zero sum to this, that if you can't grow into the new role and use the new tools, and you're constantly depending on the old tools or the former role tools, then I feel like the trade-off is bad. I feel like you're not actually doing the best service possible for the kids. Can it be part of it? Sure. But if it's the everything, it's dirty candy. It's something that fell on the ground, and you think to yourself, I really want to, I want to eat this thing again. You shouldn't. Find a way to move on. Yeah. Can't blow it off, right? Rub it on your sleeve. Dunk. Jolly Rancher. What's that? That's the dirty candy part. It's like you're not doing yourself service, right? You need to unwrap that new candy. You need to move on. Move on to a different flavor. Move fully into that next role and start to really understand the new tools there. I'm not saying you shut the door on your previous experience, your corporate knowledge, your depth of understanding in the role. But I've likened this before to conversations with individuals that are considering the VP route. And, they get really hyped up and they talk about some of the things that they want to do as a VP. I'm like, just slow your roll. Do your best possible job. Like, there's so many rules, regulations, emails, protocols. There's so much learning in that 3 to 5 years. I get it. You are looking at becoming an administrator as there's this continuum of going from teacher. Let's do the typical kind of thing. Let's say you go teacher, department head, VP, principal, super. Like, you just sort of envision this sort of transitional continuum of development. I've noticed that there's a pretty stark gap once you leave the classroom. And the fact that you are not teaching lessons to the students, developing lessons to the students, you are now officially using board protocols and procedures, which are far more kind of concrete than you sitting there, what's a new creative way that I can teach sentence formation or algebra? There isn't the same freedom. And in saying that, there isn't the same flexibility. So there's a gap there. You have to let go, at least temporarily, of who you were as a teacher. And by the time I think you do come around to, oh, okay, I kind of got this gig under control, there's few opportunities to go back to being that teacher side. And I think for some educators, that's kind of sad for them that they can't go back and use some of those skills. So yeah, the dirty candy. The job, any new role that someone chooses to kind of like step into should be exciting and slightly frightening. Right? There's something kind of thrilling about saying, yeah, I want to try something complete. You jumping from elementary to secondary is a great example of this. There was only so much that you could bring. And I guess you're a bit of a unicorn on this one, because your engagement work, I think, was a bridge between the two. I think it gave you a peek at how other schools were kind of operating. So I think in some ways it gave you some experiences that really, you had a transitional moment away from being inside elementary classrooms. And I think that opened kind of new synapses, right? But if you tried to hang on to 100% of your elementary experience in order to be successful in high school, you may have some success, but I would also say you probably would have been incredibly frustrated because you wouldn't have had the time or space to embrace what the new rules of engagement are. And you have to eventually burn that boat. You do. You have to burn that boat at some point. You have to become a secondary school teacher. You really do. Can you still have your black book of skills from elementary? Of course. But the face of it has to be representation of what the actual secondary school experience is. So that's the dirty candy. Don't convince yourself that you can still be your former role and be good in your current role.
You've given me lots there. There's a lot there. What I'm going to focus on with that is, how many times in the last year and a half I'd be doing something. First of all, I'm not constantly thinking to myself, I'm not referring to the experience that I come to my new job with. I'm not like, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, I'm fine. There's none of that for me. There's like every day is like, well, I wonder what I'm going to pick up today. I wonder what I'm missing today. But in moments where there's fluency and someone says to me, wow, you did a really good job with that there. Like, how did that work? And I'm like, that's my elementary training. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, how I operated there, now that I'm done doing what I just did and I can reflect on it, that came from how I learned to teach when I was an elementary school teacher, when I was in the elementary panel. The way you talk to that kid was fantastic. You treat them with such respect and care when they come in the room. Well, like, that's kind of what I value, right? It's like, let's slow things down. Let's be human first, and then let's jump into whatever the situation is. Or they'll say, oh, other people don't work like that. I'm like, I don't know what other people are about, but like, if that's when I reflect on, well, take me back to where I started. It's funny that you say this. And I have been purposeful in not constantly thinking and saying to people, I'm not new. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm not new. I'm not new. I'm not new. I think if I did that, I'd be in conflict 24/7. I'd be maybe not taking in advice from others, or information about how things work in secondary, because there's been a lot of that over the last year and a half. Well, this is how we do it here, and they don't necessarily say in secondary because they're not referring to elementary. But as I'm learning secondary and as I'm doing things in secondary, and I'm doing the job, I come across things and I'm like, "Oh," if I'm looking at an OSR and I'm like, "Oh," and everybody's like, "What are you owing about?" I'm like, "Well, this happened in grade 3, this happened in grade 5, this is what the teacher said in grade 7." And they're like, "So?" I'm like, "So I'm not only seeing what's there, I'm decoding it based on my experience having worked in that panel for so long and understanding the way that that panel operates, generally speaking, in this district." And so I'm taking all that stuff that I believe I understand in a different way than maybe you do, or maybe you overlook it because you have no experience there. So you're like, it doesn't mean anything to me. But to me, it's really cool to understand how to put those pieces of the puzzle together as I'm learning how to work with the puzzle pieces in secondary. It's not always, it doesn't always, it's a more wholesome perspective. And I'm still very open to learning how things work in secondary. And every day I kind of pick up something new about secondary. But at at the end of the day, I'm still I'm wide open to the learning and to the experience, but there are some things that are non-negotiable that I learned as a teacher, and in the elementary panel, having worked from K to 8, I've got little nuggets, little pieces that I can put together when there's a grade 11 kid in front of me doing whatever for whatever reason, and it's like, I've said to you and I've said to them, I'm like, "Hey, you're acting like my former grade 3 students. Do you want me to kind of work with you at that level?" And they're offended. And I'm like, "Well, don't be offended, because if you're showing me that there's something going on here and I'm tapping into this idea that you're not acting your age and your development for where you are today. And there's no markers that tell me that that is where you are mentally operating. So what's going on? Like, I can go back to that level and I can work to bring you up for whatever reason." Then they just kind of look at you sideways. They're like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, There's something wrong." Do you want to talk about what's wrong? Do you need help with something? What Anyway, and then the people observing say to me, "How did you do that? That was masterful. That was this, that was that." I'm like, "Oh, I guess I was leaning on how I learned to do the work down there that pops up every now and again up here." And I don't know how high school teachers do it without that understanding. I guess they just have a fluency of how it works in high school and what they'll do when a kid goes there. But I feel like, and the other secondary teachers who used to work elementary, sometimes we talk and we're all on the same page that way. Like, I'll say to somebody will say to me, "This kid's acting this way and doing this, so this is what I did." I'm like, "Oh, that's masterful." They're like, "Well, I taught grade 7 and 8 for 15 years, and that's how they'd act, and this is what I would do. So now they're doing that here, so I'm just taking a page from that book and employing it here, and it seems to work." And I'm like, "Okay." The dirty candy.
I feel sad as I sort of give that assessment. It saddens me. No, it does. It saddens me because um, I think that and again from what I've observed, I think that there's, well, one, you know thank God for us and our influence and clout that this discussion can even exist, right? We're giving a nice brave space to topics that we've noticed. And I'll say often, you and I have become so, I think, calm and casual about some of these hot topics that I often think about the stuff that you and I have just got used to talking about out in the open, that other people could find it quite provocative and it could, bother people. And I do truly believe that there's a bother moment here. There's a professional abrasion and bruising that happens when I observe individuals that move through leadership, and it's like a slow realization that comes across their face that either A, they become something that is not in alignment with their values, or B, they no longer are able to access and use resources and relationships that were available to them before they became a formalized leader. Now, there's many as well that seem to sort of kind of flow easily through there. But the system seems to sanitize a lot of those kind of things. It's always there always seems to be, to me, when I observe individuals that are actually, like, when I try and ascertain what the criteria are for a leader to become a better leader, the things you're able to speak to, and I'll use the line just because it's so clearly a discerning line. If you move into a POR or you move into, I can't speak specifically consultancy because I haven't spoken to enough consultants, but when you remove the rules of engagement that educators have by being in the classroom, and that rigor and routine, when you move into these spaces of professionally managed time, and you sort of are being, you're sort of expected to kind of deliver things that can come from leaders that you don't have any direct contact with. There can be stuff that comes down from the system. I think that disconnect is part of what kind of bugs system level leaders, is because when you are sort of dealing with deliverables from the system, I think it's hard. The system doesn't have a sense of the downward pressure that it's putting on you. But I do think because it's a human that's receiving that downward pressure, you end up trading off things that are kind of important to you. And I can say basics like your family time, your wellness time, your sort of personal interest time. But then I could also put into there some of your professional interests and the stuff that you might have put on your resume and mentioned in your interview in order to get into the role in the first place. And then that's the last time you have a point of contact on it. I think back in the day, that used to be why whenever I met a new principal, I would ask them, what's your teachable? I wasn't trying to be provocative, like somehow they weren't repping it. I was curious from a sort of it's like a litmus kind of perspective. I was kind of curious, like, what are the different subject areas? I guess I was doing a bit of a human character kind of assessment, like what type of subjects, AKA people that do these subjects, are becoming leaders in the system. Oh, you taught math. Oh, you taught geography. I did notice at the time I didn't meet a lot of artists. I didn't meet a lot of artists. Met a lot of spec ed heads, math, English, met a lot of individuals that taught English. So yeah, it makes me sad to sort of make that comment. And I'm completely open to have a counterpoint to that. From my observation, you just, to survive and get the work done, you have to let go of that stuff. You just have to. What's Gary? Gary threw something down there. Past roles act as a foundation for professional growth, enriching the new you by providing a diverse accumulated skill set and perspectives. Yeah. Do we speak to it? I've never heard a VP say, you know what? When I was teaching art, I haven't had that happen. I've never had a principal mention anything about their experience as a classroom teacher. I would almost guess what's interesting about that. I think there's a bit of omerta there because the general preciousness sometimes of staff, when admin dares to sort of mention that they were a teacher before, and part of the rationale for something that would be good is because they remember when they were a teacher. It's almost like they have to position it as, well, this is what the system is asking us to do, so let's move forward with it. Have you experienced that? Administrators that openly, so basically what Gary's kind of saying there, they openly attribute things that they're sort of talking about to their own classroom experience.
Well, I know Gary's new to the admin role, but
that's why I asked you.
Oh.
We're not asking. Yeah.
No, I'm not saying ask Gary. I'm saying Gary is doing that right now. Like when I talk to Gary has talked about his work as student improvement head, SST, and kind of its overlap or its influence in how he's operating today. But I know Gary's still very new. I'm not saying, in 2 years, Gary will never talk about the work he did in SST and how he can apply those things to his admin role. But I hear Gary do it. My principal does it. My principal has talked to me when we're talking. He's talked about a couple times when he's been like a head in secondary. I've heard it more. Now, I know my time in secondary is limited, but I have to say I've spent a lot of time with admin in secondary because of my role. So I know I've only been in secondary for a year and a half, but I think I've spent more time with admin in their office for meetings and conversations than maybe some of the new teachers who are in their first 6 years have spent in the office because of the nature of my job. So I'm kind of, I don't know if that's fair to say, but I'm saying it. And they never talk, like I rarely hear them talk about their time as teachers compared to elementary principals. That seems to come up more. When I look at my career, and again, I've spent 20 plus years in elementary. So that's a lot of friggin' time. And so it's not fair in terms of the time. It's very lopsided one way. I've heard elementary principals and vice principals talk about that connection to when they were teachers a hell of a lot more. So I guess what I'm saying is it's my data skewed. It's not good, but my current principal has in the short time I've worked with him. So that's kind of cool, but the VPs haven't or don't. One VP I work with has never mentioned anything about, to me, in our context, the teacher role and it coming into this. Now, having said this, I want to throw a shout out. I was at a transition meeting yesterday, and I was listening to the grade 7 and 8 teachers talk about their students moving into grade 9. And I was 110% impressed with these 3 intermediate teachers. I was like, it made me, I reflected a lot as they were talking about these kids, how they've been processing things with the kids, building the relationship with the kids. I was like nodding my head, like, whether this is true or not, you seem like you're here for all the right reasons. And the work you're doing is fantastic. So I take as many notes as I can, see what I can do when the kids come my way. And I say that because I've been in some transition meetings where I haven't gotten that vibe from the intermediate teachers. I've gotten more of this feels really sterile. This feels really sterile, and you know what to do, but I'm not getting the vibe you're doing it. Like, I don't know. Is that critical of me to say? I just felt really good based on my understanding of elementary school in my district and how it works. And I was like, these teachers seem right on with the things, the detail they're providing about their students and the tidbits on, how they've built relationship and what they've done to try to get to know the kids and their families and work through that. It was nice.
I think, I think, I think, I think it's fine. You, I think you are gathering enough experience to sort of comment on vibe. Ultimately, it ends up becoming just work. Like you have to sort of take that data and translate it into support systems. So sometimes vibe can be a distraction too. Um, but no, I think it's reasonable. The expectation is that we're delivering at a caliber that ultimately will be useful to the kids. And there has to be enough richness to it that you may not actually get back and be able to talk to these teachers again. So it has to be kind of detailed and dense. It just by nature, it has to be. Otherwise, you're not leaving there with enough information. So I think.
It was good yesterday. It was good. Um, I sent you a message on Instagram, and it hit me hard. Just kinda gonna refer to it quickly. It was,
Do it.
a video, and it was a video about, the notion of when people say, "Call me if you need me."
Mm,
Let me know if you need anything. I'm here for you. I don't know
mm.
if you remember because I send you
Oh,
a
that
lot
was
of
so. I don't even know. How long ago did you send that to me?
maybe yesterday, the day before. I know I inundate you with
No, it's
I
okay.
I'm just saying it was the reason why I sent it to you
Oh
was
no, yeah, yeah, I saw
oh,
that one. That never. It's the never say. It's the one that's never say. Let me know if.
if you need me or
Yeah, yeah.
instead of because I know you're a firm believer in you don't particularly like that line, "Call me
I
if you
hate it.
need me."
I hate it. Yeah,
And the guy's message was, "Hey, instead of dropping the, call me if you need me, or if you need something, let me know, just give the person what you think they might need at that time."
yeah,
So right? Like, I there was something about the way he said it, and I know you've said it a million times to me. It hit. You know, when things just sink in and hit, and it hit, and, it hit because there's been a couple of situations at school recently where I've said to kids and adults, "Hey, if you need anything, let me know." And I say it and I feel the not inauthenticity, but they're probably not gonna reach out. 99% they're not gonna reach out and tell me they need something. I should just give them what I think they may reach out for. And it's you don't do this with every single person. You do it with the 1 or 2 where you get a vibe like person's kinda struggling through something. I did it 2 days ago with a student. I saw the student in the hall, and I was like, "Yo, what's going on?" My favorite thing to do in secondary is when you see students in the hall and you call on them, and they automatically think they're in trouble because they're skipping or they've been out of the room for 25 minutes or whatever, right? I try not to hit them over the head with that as the first thing. But I said to the kid, "Hey, what's going on?" And they're like, yeah, yeah, you." And then I call them by name. I'm like, "Why are you acting like you don't know me? I'm your IEP monitor." Like, "Oh, sorry, Mr. C, you caught me off guard," or whatever. Probably because they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna get in shit for not being in class." But I was like, "Hey, the last time I talked to you, this and this was going on. Like, have things improved? Have things gotten worse?" And then they kind of did like they were alone. It's not like they were with a group of people and I was friggin', airing their business or whatever in front of their friends, but they gave me a response that was weak. and they didn't really commit to one side or the other.
Hmm.
So then the day goes on, and I called them out of class, fifth period, and they come to my workspace, and I'm like, "Hey, come in, sit down." And they're like, "Am I in trouble?" I'm like, "Well, not unless you have something to confess." Like, no. I said our little talk in the hallway was I didn't feel good about it. So I'm doing a little bit of a deeper dive. This is the deeper dive because I told you that if you needed something, let me know. But I just feel like you need something, you're not letting me know. So I called you out. I'm calling you out. And then they get into the I'm not going to this class because I'm scared of this and that. And I'm like, okay, well, my job is try to get you back in there. So what are you willing to do? And anyway, so it was like call me if you need me, but I got the vibe that they weren't gonna call and they needed something. And I didn't do any of the why aren't you coming to me? I didn't do any, I just called them out. Said this is what this is the vibe. I don't want to hear from the vice principal that I need to talk to you. I'm just talking to you now. So let's do what we can. I was giving them what I thought that they needed, whether they needed it or not. I got the vibe that I needed to act instead of waiting for them to come to me and react. So that was good, and I've been doing a lot more of that lately. I've been walking the halls a lot more, and when I see kids that I know or that are on my caseload, I'm like, "What's up?" One kid, I walked the halls for about 25 minutes. I saw the same kid 4 times in 4 different places. So the 5th time I was like, "Yo, you're not just going to the bathroom. Are you even in class?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "So you think just walking the halls, you think people are just gonna, like, see you and think you're going to the bathroom? I've seen you 4 times in 20 minutes. This is the 5th time. What's going on?" "Well, I didn't do this assignment, and they're gonna want me to hand it in today, and you can't not be in class." So, anyway, I ended up calling the teacher and saying, "They're coming in, they've been avoiding it the whole time. Like, it's my suggestion that you don't hammer them when they walk in, but you're gonna." That's the other thing too, teachers are gonna do what they're gonna do. So I'm just like, "The kids floating in the hall, I'm gonna get them into your room. I guess you can decide then if you're gonna hammer them and then they leave again, they don't come back. Well, that's not my problem anymore, it's your problem." But they're scared of this and that. Teachers don't like to hear that from me. When I tell them the kid's scared that you're gonna do this, they take offense. Like, "What are you getting all offended for?" This is the message they gave to me. This is the message I'm delivering to you. I'm not saying you're gonna do that. I'm just saying this is why they're telling me that they're not going because of that. They get all offended. What are you getting offended for? I'm not telling you what to do. And I learn quick. If I send Jimmy to Clough's class and Clough starts yelling at Jimmy, well, I say to Jimmy, you got to let your parents know. I'm sure your parents don't want to hear people are yelling at you at school. You can do something or you can not do something. Anyway, I've heard, I'm doing a lot of talking today, bro. I'm going to stop after this. I heard from a couple of kids that I'm getting a little bit of a reputation, but for the right things. One kid said to me, "Have you talked to so and so lately?" I'm like, "No, I haven't seen them." They're like, "They don't want to come in here, 208." I said, "Why?" Like, "Because you always ask them to put their uniform on." I'm like, "Okay, this is a this is a uniform school. And if they come in here," I'm like, I just at the heart, little role in psychology just wants to be like, I just want people to say that I do my job. That's little Roland deep down inside. Little Roland likes it when people say, "Oh, Roland does his job," instead of "Roland doesn't do his job." So when you come in here, unless you've got some song and dance for me, get your uniform on
Hmm.
because I'm not interested. Little sorry. Little Roland is not interested in sitting in the vice principal's office, and the vice principal says, "Every time I go in that room, Clough's not wearing his uniform." I know they're not gonna do that, but little Roland's scared that they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, give me a reason, give little Roland a reasons to tell the vice principal, "This is why they're not in uniform, and I'm not pressing them because of this reason or that reason." So I say to the kid, "You tell so and so if they're that scared of putting on their uniform, they don't want to come in here because of that." Well, that's I like tell them that's their problem. But I'm like, "Am I not reasonable?" They're like, "No, you're very reasonable." I'm like, "I guess they don't think I'm reasonable." And then they say, "Well, they don't ever have a good reason for not wearing their uniform. They just don't want to wear it." I'm like, "Okay, well,
Mm.
that's life then. That's life. Like, what do you want me to say?" But it's funny. They're like, "You're going to tell us to get into uniform." I'm like, "Yeah, I am. But I'm also going to let you play on your phone for 10 minutes after you've done like a 10-minute task. Like, I'll do that, right?" And other teachers will think, "Oh, Chidiak's soft. He lets you play on your phone." Okay. I mean, okay. What do you want me to say to that? They did a little bit of work. They played on their phone. They did a little whatever. They're in a special room because they can't function in the traditional room. Anyway, I thought you'd appreciate that because this is I've talked to Gary about this. This is like kids walk in and I just look at them. I'm like, "You're not even going to make an effort? Like you're wearing a jogging suit. Where's your uniform?" "Well, it's in my bag." And it's okay, well, you're not writing a test, so I don't feel pressed. Go get your stuff on. They're gone. They come back 25 minutes later. I'm like, "Are you serious?" They're like, "Well," I said, "Okay, stop talking. I'm gonna make a note in the sign-in sheet that you came in at this time. Bravo. I told you to put your uniform on. You're gone for 25 minutes. Not bravo." They're like, "Why are you putting that on the sheet?" I'm like, "So when your teacher says, 'Why didn't they get their work done?' Well, you were gone for 25 minutes."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, you can't tie my hands and then expect me to do all the heavy lifting. I'm not interested." "Well, what okay, get to work. You got some time, do something." I like that I can talk to people that way.
Hmm.
I'm done talking, bro. You're on. Sorry.
You did great. You did great.
Thanks, little Roland's happy.
Yay! So we had parent teacher,
Oh,
parent teacher night this week.
mine's this
Eh,
coming week.
yeah, it's good. I enjoy those nights.
Sicko.
Yeah, I know. There's something wrong with you, Cliff. I always knew there was something wrong with that Cliff guy. The reason I like it is I like the moment where I say, okay, we've got 4.75 minutes. What do you want to do with it? Because like our base times are 5-minute meetings. And to just wait for the parents or the families to commit, like what they want to use the time for. And I find time and time again, when the parent is able to sort of drive that moment, the conversations are way better. They're way better. The stuff that I'm just here because I wanted to put a face to the teacher. I've watched the videos you've sent home, and I needed to kind of meet you in person. I was looking at this assignment that you put out there, and how did you come up with this assignment? Just that moment of pause to let the parent tell you why they're there, and not jump right into assessment data or productivity data or like homework stuff. Like it's good. I like it, and I do enjoy it. It's incredibly tiring, to kind of do school from 9 a.m. till 9 at night. That's a long day. But it was good. One of the new topics that had kind of popped up, and it hadn't I hadn't seen this, but it was just a little bit of a trend, is that I there were a few parents that um that are it's not that they're concerned that the IEP doesn't work, but I had a few parents talk about how, considering removing the IEP altogether because they don't think their kids need it anymore. And again, I do a lot of waiting. I'll do a lot of waiting for the parents to kind of walk through that door. My opinion, I really reserve it, and I try and be quite poker faced in that moment. Sometimes I have found in that conversation, parents they're seeking professional counsel, like they want a, like a third party assessment as to whether or not they're right. And I don't like to give that. It's one of those moments where I really crave direct questions. And I have actually said to parents, you need to tighten that question up a little bit. And sometimes they don't know how. They're not quite sure how. But I had a handful of parents talking about in their mind, and in their kids' minds, they're not feeling that the IEP applies anymore. So lots of different reasons why. I don't want to go into the details why because it had to do with specific classroom experiences. But it was fascinating for that to kind of pop up. Have you ever encountered that where parents are telling you is that we're thinking of getting rid of the IEP?
Yes, and a couple have pulled the trigger, and what I've noticed are the kids. The kids were the ones that were like, they're like, but now I have no, what did they're like, now I have no safety net. I'm like, you're fine. Just, you can still come and talk to me, or you can still talk to your teachers. But some parents really see it as a disadvantage. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, that's between you and your child.
Mhm.
Um, if you ask me, I'll tell you what I think, but it's not my decision, it's yours. But the couple of times that's happened, the kids have been on shaky ground. Like, what am I going to do without this safety net that my parents
Mhm.
want to take away? And then there are other parents that want their kid not on an IEP yesterday, and I'm like, they don't need it. There's no evidence that they need one.
Yeah. I think yours and my board operate a little bit differently. My board really does need um I don't know, maybe I could be off, but I get the sense like your board is more open. It's more easy to start an IEP at secondary, it sounds like, for you than it is for us. Like we have to go through some pretty rigorous steps, and we don't evaluate the paperwork on site. It goes up to our board team and they tell us whether or not they agree or disagree or whether or not we move forward. That
So in
tends
that,
to be
yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna
it's
say, I can't say anything here other
mhm,
than you're right. When we get documentation at the school level,
mhm,
you know, I slash the team, the caseload team I belong to, we that information's brought to the caseload team, and
mhm,
decisions are made based
mhm.
on the documentation that's been provided to us. So, yeah, like when I get a letter from a psychiatrist recommending something for a particular reason and the accommodations that they recommend, that doesn't go anywhere past the people in the building unless we
Mhm.
really don't know what to do, and then we call our special education liaison for our school. But
Yeah.
yeah, you guys have a process where it doesn't matter what the documentation is, it gets bumped up to something, someone, some entity who then, I guess, relays information back down to
Yep.
you, correct?
Yeah. So this just actually it is popping up with one of my families right now where there's a new diagnosis, a new DX that's going to be added into the IEP. And I put it to my team. I'm like, okay, so there's already an IEP, already a clear DX on the IEP. Do we just go into the IPRC meeting? And at the IPRC meeting, I think you folks do IPRC meetings differently too.
We don't do them. unless
Yes.
a parent requests it. We don't do IPRC.
Yeah, we do it every time. So if it seems like we're always in some part of the IPRC cycle. So our next like official time comes up in May, and that's where we're going to be sort of adjusting IEPs from like resource assistance to withdrawal assistance. So kids taking strats versus not taking strats. That would also be the moment where kids that are coming in for the first time, we'd be catching them as well at this point, like a new DX, a new single DX, and then will also be the time where we're adding to an IEP. But the conversation was, I said, okay, so I've got a doctor's note, and there's going to be the report forthcoming. I knew that I can start to, because we already have the IEP, I can start to adjust the IEP to reflect some new accommodations. We can do that. We have the freedom to do that. I said, but do I have to send the documentation up to the board for approval? And it was funny, there was mixed responses, but ultimately the final word is yes, everything has to be sent up to be approved. So we would upload a digital copy into our information system, and then that would be reviewed by the board psychologist team. And then there'd be a note put into that information system as to it meets the criteria. So yeah, this is done away. So to that end, we are in constant, even though parents start to say they do or they don't want to have the IEP anymore, there's a lot of bureaucracy for us to sort of make that decision. So as a parent sitting there with me, often I will tell them that one of the last things I'll say that even if you decide to remove the IEP, there's a process to bring it back on board again if you wish to. So usually I end up like, so what's the point? And is it because it's so, I kind of say like for the some of the bureaucratic hassles, like why is it that you want to go through that? Like, is it really worthwhile to have it removed altogether? Sometimes they say, well, okay, we'll stick with it. We were just kind of concerned about blah, blah, blah. And often it's a concern about perception, as that at some point they don't want their kid to be thought other of because they have an IEP. And there's not much I can do for that. Like that's kind of my mind kind of goes, well, obviously the culture of your family is that you kind of believe this, that there's something less than about your child because they do have the IEP. Like if you're not able to support the benefit of it quite clearly, for me, it's kind of one of two things. You truly believe there's no benefit, or you're not sort of clear on how to speak to the benefits and understand your child's identification at the same time. Like you can't match it up. And I've met a lot of parents that think that their kids are somehow be limited for future opportunity because they'll be perceived as less than because they have an IEP. I haven't yet come across that. I've come across the fear a lot, but I haven't come across the actual statement, like the actual evidence of that. So someone's put that in their head. And sometimes it's the kid. It's the kid telling their parents, well, I don't want to be seen as special. I don't want to be seen as different than my friends. It's unfortunate because at the same time, they do want to be seen as different. Like to not want to be seen as different and be seen as different at the same time, I think is one of those challenges of being a teenager. How do I present authenticity? How do I seem interesting? But I don't want to seem too interesting because then I'm just like everybody else. So yeah, to be a teenager. But just back to that, the parent teacher night, I do dig it. I love sitting down and getting into the real conversations. 4.5 minutes is not long. It's normally 5, but by the time I go and receive them and we sit down, I'm like, we're down. We just lost 15, 20 seconds on that walk. What do you want from this? And some parents are super simple and yet ridiculously complex at the same time. How are they doing? Like, let's tighten that up. What do you mean? How are they doing? I said, we can do that by marks. Like it's funny. I don't make it, it's one of those moments where I try to be light and casual, but I also don't make it easy on the parents, I guess, because I just want to get to a real conversation. If we can get, a minute of real conversation, I feel like it's worthwhile. So best wishes with your parent teacher night this coming week.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I gotta get going here.
Yep.
Any final words?
No.
Okay.
No.
Don't eat the don't eat the dirty candy.
Don't eat the dirty candy.
Don't pick it up off the floor and put
Don't
your.
even pick it up. Yeah, don't even pick it up. Just leave it there. Leave it for the birds.
If you need me, you know where to find me. If you need anything, let me know.
Exactly.
And Gary, thanks for checking us out live today.
Yep. Thanks,
Wishing you a
Gary.
great weekend. And anybody else, thanks for checking us out. Have an awesome day, night, whatever. And we'll talk to you later. This was season 9, episode 28, number 376 of the Decoded Podcast. Peace.
Peace, man. I'll check you later.